So, Zombie Child is the latest film from director Bertrand Bonello. It came out in 2019, had a 2020 US release. Bonello is a French director. He's most associated with the New French Extremity movement, which appeared at the late 90s, early 2000s, but of course he's branched off. He's responsible for House of Tolerance, which was my second favorite film from 2011 after Steve McQueen's Shame. His most popular film is Nocturama, which came out in 2016, which I really liked. The middle sort of dragged, but besides that, I thought it was a really brilliant film. I've seen all his other features, On War, Teresia, The Pornographer, Saint Laurent. I thought all of those were way too long. I thought they could have been trimmed down. They were also very boring. If you know anything about Bonello, his dialogue is like poetry. Every single line means something. Every single line relates to society. And after a while, when the subject matter is not that interesting, that sort of dialogue, that sort of style can get very tiresome. When he's at his peak, House of Tolerance, Nocturama, he's really good, but the other films that I just mentioned, not so much. I've also seen his shorts, Sydney the Doll is Mine, Sarah Winchester Ghost Opera, and the other ones as well. I think they're called Where the Boys Are, and then My New Picture, which is the girl, and it's just 40 minutes. It's a stationary shot of the girl listening to music and filming her reactions. I haven't seen those because they're only on Karagarga, and of course I don't have access to that site, but everything that's widely available I have seen, so let's just move on to Zombie Child. So, like I said, Zombie Child came out last year. His newest film, it takes place in 1962 Haiti, but also takes place in present-day Paris. It jumps back and forth. Bonello likes to use time in his films, and he plays with that a lot. So there's the scene in Nocturama where we watch the beginning, and then in the end, we cut back and forth. He jumps around in time, and that's obvious with Zombie Child, as there's two different locations, two different plots happening at the same time. 1962 Hades plot is about a guy who is brought back from the dead, and then in modern-day Paris, we are following this girl who is new to this all-girl boarding school, and her aunt is a voodoo witch type person. The girl's friend thinks that she has become possessed, so she goes to the girl's aunt to try and get help. We jump back and forth. We see how the guy in Haiti in 1962, who is brought back from the dead, and his sort of voodoo culture type thing, and how that's similar to the present-day Paris storyline. It's very confusing, very convoluted, and not that interesting. It wasn't anything like any other Bonello film that I've ever seen. It is a horror film. You know, we deal with witches, we deal with voodoo, we deal with people being brought back from the dead, which is not really something that Bonello has tackled before. He's, of course, tackled rape, he's, of course, tackled torture, but that's really in his earlier work in the New French Extremity, so we kind of see him going back to his roots in this film. The editing is something that I'd like to talk about here, because like I did say, we jump back and forth in time, and if you've ever seen a Bonello film, specifically Nocturama, specifically House of Tolerance, the editing is very hyper-stylized. In certain scenes and sequences, you'll generally see scenes happening at the same time, and they'll be like in panels, so you see 4 different shots at the same time. I like the scene in House of Tolerance where we see all the prostitutes inside the brothel go about their day. None of the hyper-stylized editing is present in Zombie Child. None of what I really like from Bonello is present in Zombie Child. Another thing that I like from Bonello is his use of scores and use of soundtracks. He's, I think, a master at using pre-existing songs in his films. In House of Tolerance, I keep calling back to it, but I really do think that film is brilliant. There's the scene where all the prostitutes are dancing to the Moody Blues Nights in White Satin. And of course, that movie takes place in 1899, so that song didn't exist. He uses pre-existing songs all throughout his films. In Nocturama, there's the scene where the teenagers dance around to Blondie's Call Me. There's the scene where the guy is basically lip-syncing for 5 minutes straight to Frank Sinatra's My Way. His films are all like musicals. None of this is present in Zombie Child. It's very boring. I was very excited for this film. Because I do like Bonello. I do like Bonello and what he does. I like his style. I like his commentary. I like what he has to offer. But when none of that is brought to the table, I feel like I'm just watching any other movie. I did mention before that this is a horror film, and what Bonello likes to do in his other films is reference a lot of things, whether it be music, whether it be other films. There's the scene where they're in the cafeteria in Zombie Child, and one of the girls basically just spits out green vomit. That's, of course, a callback to The Exorcist. There's like a shot for shot remake scene in this film from the locker room scene from Carrie. I see this film being influenced by a lot of other works, and of course that is present in other Bonello films, but what I look for, what I want from a Bonello film, just isn't in this. I was bored through most of it, I was uninvested in the story, it wasn't original in the slightest, and sadly, I would not recommend it. If you are a die-hard Bonello film fan, watch it, you might get something out of it. For me, I didn't. I'm going to stick to House of Tolerance, I'm going to stick to Nocturama, I'm going to keep my hopes up for his next film.